Hello, welcome to another one of my crazy Minecraft tutorials. This build/tutorial is based on the new Warden mob. I wanted to do a build based on that and this was the best thing I could come up with, so I'm going to show you how to build this epic Warden portal, which is perhaps a little bit creepier than it should be. Here is the full list of the materials that you'll be needing. Some of these may not be necessary because it's just extra texturing/coloring. The dark prismarine looks very good with this build, but if it's too expensive or too hard to get, you could just use warped wood instead for all of those bluish blocks, but if you want the extra detail, then get the different color variants. The walls and fences at the bottom of the list are just for extra detailing, so that number could fluctuate. It really just depends on how much you end up using. I just listed there the amount that I ended up with in my final build. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. So because this has a portal feature, I thought it would be easier to build the portal first and just do the build around that. So we need to put the portal into the ground, so build 7 blocks across, and then we need it to go 6 blocks high with the obsidian. On the top 2 corners, add a black stone brick, and then 7 more obsidian across the middle. So the interior of the portal should be 7 by 6. It's important to have those black stone bricks on those top corners because it's eventually going to blend in with the rest of the build. Alright, once you have that done, we're going to start building the first layer on the base around this portal. So you're going to see a little line on my graphic, and that represents where the portal is located, so we're just going to build around it with these blocks. Also note that the full dimensions of this build when it's completed is 23 by 24 by 16. Layer 2 goes directly on top of layer 1, so you won't see any previous blocks on this layer, just so you know. They're just being stuck straight on top of the first layer. And I'm trying to make this a first-person tutorial too, although I have it sped up a little bit so that it doesn't go super slow. I don't want you sitting here watching a 30-minute video when you really don't have to. I also have my little grid on the left, which is super helpful and easy to understand once you figure it out. So however you want to build it, you could slow down the video or follow my little graphic on the left. So as you build, I just kind of want to talk a little bit about my thought process behind this build. So fun story is I was trying to design this, and how does one design a mob statue? And by mob, I mean specifically one that has arms and legs, because I haven't actually done that before. So I wasn't sure if I wanted to do a full body or not. But then I ended up with this design where it was just the top half and turned the inside into a portal, just because the actual Warden kind of looks like he's got this glowing interior, and I thought it'd be cool to insert a portal in there because why not? So we have this rib cage effect that you see on the Warden texture, and that's happening around the entrance of the portal. So I thought that was kind of cool. If you are brand new to my tutorials and if it overwhelms you, which I know it might, it's easier for me to just break down one little piece of it at a time. So just focus on one tiny section, get those blocks in place, and then move on. Also double check your work before moving on to the next layer so you don't accidentally miss a block. Although don't feel too bad if you do mess up one layer after it's done. I also had to rebuild this tutorial about 3 times before I actually got it perfect without mistakes, so it happens to all of us, and it doesn't make or break the build, but for the sake of my tutorial, of course, I wanted it to be perfect. But if you make a mistake, it's really not a big deal. It's gonna look good no matter what, even if you are like 1 block off. You can always go back and fix it, or add your own details to it, or make it look like something completely different. You are in control here. On layer 6, you'll start to see an introduction to the fingers on the Warden. Yes, fingers. I realize that mobs do not have fingers, but I decided to add some on this statue just to make him look a little bit more menacing. I thought it would look better than having just giant fists, if you will. So I went ahead and gave him a few fingers, 4 to be exact. And I know it's very random to give him 4 fingers. Why did I give him 4 and not 5? I have no idea, but that's how it worked out, and it looks fine, I think. So it's less confusing. On layer 8, you're basically going to start by covering up the portal, so you should no longer be able to see it by this layer. Also, a fun fact about this layer is this dark prismarine that we have toward the center of the head is actually his tongue, because I thought it would be cool to include that since you can barely see it in the texture. Plus, it just adds a neat bit of detail that looks really interesting, or so I thought. And so it's even less confusing, layer 9 is going to start above those slabs that we just placed on the previous layer. You can always look and see where I started it too, if that helps. After this layer, we just have a few more blocks to place on the hands, and then we're done with those, and then we can focus on the head, which is where it gets easier in my opinion. Once you get into these layers where all the different blue blocks come into play, like the blues, the greens, you can use the same block if you want, but if you want a better gradient texture effect, then you could try the color palette that I used. But really, it's any blue block that can go there. And I hope I used good colors to make these distinguishable enough in the grid. But if it's too much trouble, then just make them all blue. Just pick a color and go with it. We're getting close to the end, we have just a few more layers to go, and we just need to finish off his head and build his horns. On the final layer, layer 16, the only special thing to know is the stairs that go at the top of the horns are going to be kind of facing each other toward the center. So kind of make it a circle effect, whatever you call that, stair effect. That's what I did anyway. Once you have the layers completely done, you can take your prismarine walls, warped fences, and blackstone walls, and we're just going to scatter those all over the build to add whatever effect it is that makes it look like he's covered in moss or dripping or who knows what it represents. But it doesn't matter the exact amount you used. I know I shared with you the amount at the beginning, but you can use any amount you want. I did put the prismarine with the warped fences attached to the horns to give it that dangling effect that you see on the actual texture. And then once I did that on both sides, I did some blackstone walls hanging from the arms to give those some kind of dripping effect. I really wonder what he's dripping with or what he's covered in, but it looks creepy either way and really completes this build, I think. And of course, don't forget to light the portal. And I'm just checking the inside to make sure all the blocks look like they are flowing correctly and it seems correct. And then the build is done and absolutely terrifying. I know that tutorial was a bit more complicated than most of my other ones. However, that also means it's that much more satisfactory if you finish it. You are welcome to suggest ideas for new tutorials, however, whether or not I actually do them depends on my mood, and whether I think it's worth my time. Obviously, I don't want to make something that I don't think a lot of people will benefit from. If there's something very specific you have in mind, don't forget that you can search before requesting it just to make sure I haven't done it already, because it's a possibility, you never know. Anyway, have a great rest of your day/night, and I will see you again in another video. See you!